Hello.
Welcome back to the Bible Study Girl podcast. I am Sarita. You may know me as Bible Study Girl. And the first hello and welcome you had to this podcast was the voice of our very own Bible study brother, the executive producer of this podcast.
Yes, I Bible study brother, but I'm also known as Icarus Gray over at Gray Area Anime, and this is the most wonderful podcast of your day. My album Gray Matter soundtrack to the BSG just Enterprise is out now, and you should go listen to
it. Yes, it's a great album to play, not only for summertime, but just any time of year, really. So listen to it, guys, while you're working out, while you're gardening, while you're cooking dinner for your family. It is a great listen, and that is from a non-music professional. Moving on. How are you guys doing today? Hopefully you are doing well. Brother, how are you feeling today?
Pretty good, I'd say. This boundary chat has been a journey.
Okay. So that's why I was asking, if you're new around these parts, then you may not know it, but Bible Study Brother and I are reading through the book Boundaries that was written by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. It is a New York Times bestseller, and it is a book that has had tremendous impact on my life personally. It was recommended to me by my therapist some years ago. And the first time I read it, I stopped halfway through because it's a hard read. It is not beach reading. It is reading that makes you think and makes you ponder. And so when Bible Study Brother issued the challenge for Bible Study Girl to have a book club, this is the second book that came to mind and kept pressing forward. And so I felt like it would be great for him and I to read the book together and to come together and discuss it. And so that is what you have walked yourselves into, guys. We are now on chapter 5 of the Boundaries book, and chapter 5 discusses the 10 laws of boundaries. So that's why I asked my brother how he was doing. He often reports to me off air that the book is giving him a 1-2 punch. And so I just wanted to take a temperature and see how you're feeling today before we get started with this discussion.
Pretty good. I think this one wasn't as attacking. It was more kind of revelatory to kind of seeing a couple things and then kind of understanding, okay, this is how this plays into the ultimate setting of boundaries. Like, and even in the moments where I was like, okay, well, this, like, I'm wanting to share this book with so many people. But I'm also like, at the same time, I want to share it with them I'm not afraid of the hurt, because there's more harm by this not being in your life as an understanding. So I was at least able to work through that.
Okay, and I will say, so you understand why I push the book, why I feel like it's a great read. It's a hard read, but I think it's a hard read, but I think it helps you establish a healthier lifestyle just in general, because there are so many different areas of our lives where we need to have healthy boundaries. And quite often we're not taught what healthy boundaries look like in the church. I don't think that's necessarily intentional, but I think it can definitely be a side effect of, I don't know, quote unquote, like church brain. And what I love about this book is that they take scripture and they break it down for you and help you see how some of the things, the routines that we get into are not truly healthy, right? But it takes a deep examination to get to that point. So I like to shake things up around here. Like I said, chapter 5 covers 10 laws of boundaries. And so I asked Bible Study Brother to pick 3 of the laws that stood out to him. And I have 3 laws that really stood out to me. So, and I'm wondering if our if our laws will
Be the same.
intersect, yeah, or be different. So the way I want to do this is I'll go first. I will tell you one law that stood out to me, and I'll give you an example of how that law has affected my life.
Mm.
And then you can share. And I would love for us to just have some nice discussion about these laws
Okay.
and the ones that stood out. Also, I want to say this. So we're doing the review of the book. We are not going to cover everything that's in each chapter. Each chapter is intense, deep, and it's going to be personal to you and your journey in your life. But I wanted us to do this just to give people a glimpse into, oh, just from this simple conversation, I can see how I have room to move or
Yeah.
shift or change some things. So
And also,
I'm
this is what I've realized about this book. This is a book that you do have to reread and revisit. You have to study this book alongside your Bible or just study the book in general, because there's so much information and there's so much life changing, life giving information that you need to be able to process all of it. Like, don't just, if you walk through the book the first time, I feel like you can come off with a false spirit of condemnation on yourself. And that's
mhm.
not what the book is trying to do. So,
No,
like,
it's
yeah.
definitely not. It's definitely giving you an opportunity to do better and giving you a nice framework of what healthy looks like. Um, if you are a perfectionist and you want things a certain way, this book could definitely condemn you. But the thing is, none of us are perfect. We're not ever going to hit the mark 100% of the time. But like you said, I think it is a book that has to be revisited over the course of your life because you change. And we've talked about that in the earlier podcast. I had some seriously unhealthy boundaries when I first started reading this book. As I worked on those, I've grown in some areas, but I've also developed maybe like some coping mechanisms to kind of, um, I've gone in the opposite direction. So I love that you said it is something that needs to constantly be revisited. One thing I don't mind doing is analyzing myself and thinking about my life and the choices I'm
Mm,
making and the decisions I'm making and kind of like trying to break down what is best, what is healthy, um, and what does that really look like in real life. That is one thing that and I am going to get into my law, but that
mm-hmm.
is one thing that really like melts my butter in a sermon and when I'm
Girl,
just having conversation with people. I like practical advice.
melts my butter.
It melts my butter, man. I like practical advice. How do I walk
Um,
this out? How do I live it? And so I do want this podcast to be a how do I walk it out? How do I live it type thing? Because that's what works for me. It may not work for other people, but
yeah.
yeah, it melts my butter, rings my bell. Okay.
Dog, it's there's somebody in the haystack is all I got to say.
You know what?
Or
This
in the
is off.
wood pile. There's somebody in the wood pile.
I can't remember, but listen.
No, I
Well,
remember. I just can't say it. So I'm saying it the way
oh,
I can say it for this
you
podcast.
okay. You saying that made me think about how Kanae was recording all the country sayings she never heard before. And I really need to hear her up because I was like, depending on her to be my like when I need a country saying today, hit them with it.
Yeah, I need to have a. She needs to start doing that once a day in the Cuzzo crew chat.
I feel
Yeah.
like she should make it a Google Doc that we can all just have access to and add
Oh
as
yeah,
we
yeah,
grow. I think
yeah,
that would be great.
yeah. Let's
Okay,
work on
so
it. Okay.
the first law that I want to talk about is the law of exposure.
Okay.
The
All right.
law of exposure is all about the fact that your boundaries need to be made clear to others and communicated in relationships. One thing that I struggled with when I started working on having healthy boundaries is I had a hard time expressing to other people exactly what my boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't always mean that you have to give somebody an explanation,
Mm,
per se about why you're doing things the way you're doing things, but you do have to tell them what your boundaries are so that you give them an opportunity to respect them or not to respect them. Like, it's unfair of me in a relationship to change what the boundaries have always been without communicating it to the other person. I need to expose them to where I'm at. And as somebody, Bible study brother may not believe this, but I am not a person that really likes conflict. I don't like conflict. He doesn't believe that because
No, I believe it. It's just okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I believe it alone. I believe it alone. I don't know how to like. I'm trying to think about this, and it's like, no, I don't believe you like conflict, but
I don't think you think that I've ever had an issue speaking my mind.
no, you've probably had issues with the general populace, and so I'm not
Yes,
gonna base my experience to everyone else's experience because that's where
correct.
I end up getting confused sometimes. Like when I'm encouraging you, I'm like, fam, you just need to show them the same stuff that you show me.
Right. So, but I will say though that when things started to change for me personally, it was difficult for me to draw some lines with you and mom, and because we do operate in a certain
Hmm.
way, right? And I'm changing the way we flow and the way we operate. So I did have to be more vocal and more verbal about it.
I was just
And
talking
I
about this last night. I was just
were
talking.
you?
I was because I was talking to Charmaine about the need for like this. Basically, I think, and I can see it now. The self boundaries of kind of like creating that space for yourself that does
Mm-hmm.
not exist in others. And I was like, the crazy part about it is when we were all living together. Like my sister used to cook and wash the dishes all the time. Like me and my
Right.
mama just, and the grace that was given from you to us to do that, but then me not being like, okay, for me, let me get up and go ahead and do this. Let me clean, let me do whatever, was taking advantage of the grace you were given. And it wasn't like, that shouldn't have been something that's done, but I wouldn't have, but if somebody keeps doing, like, I should have taken the personal responsibility of understanding that, not just being like, well, you doing it,
But here's the thing,
so.
though. That's why the law of exposure is so important. In my head, if I want you to do the other things, I have to say it to you. You're not a mind reader. It is on me to communicate to you clearly, hey, I will cook. Can you wash the dishes? Like, I
Yeah.
love cooking. I don't mind cooking. Can you wash the dishes? And or you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and to some people that may seem small, but over time you can start to build resentment and feel used
Oh
and
no,
all
100%.
things, right? Because you feel like people are taking advantage of you, but you haven't clearly communicated
So
what you need. And so that's what
I
the
like
law of
I'm
exposure
gonna I'm
did for
gonna
me. Okay, what's
I
your
got
law?
my
We're on the same.
so no, we're not.
Okay,
I
but
understand yours though, but my first, well, technically it's not my first, but I'm going to do this in accordance with the one you're talking about, which is where I'm
okay.
thinking about, which is the law of activity.
Oh yes. Let me see. I think that was on my list. It was on my list. Let
So,
Yes,
you
it's
know,
on my list. So
so
great.
for
Go
me,
ahead.
I often confuse a lack of movement with losing my nerve to act. And then I end up in a place of stagnation, and therefore I miss setting my boundary to get up and get moving with God.
Right.
So, like, that's more so what I mean is like in that law of activity, it's like, well, why am I sitting here just like, I like cooking. So, why am I not cooking? Why am I not using that? Am I not using that because I don't feel like washing dishes? Because that doesn't make, that doesn't grow me or put me in a different place. And then I end up being the person with the talent that's not using the talent. And I don't want to be that type of
Right.
servant. So that's more so what I'm talking about when I say that. It's just the law of activity in regards to that. Because if I'm not setting the boundary that I got to get up and do this, if I'm like not moving, then I can't even, I'm not breaking through a boundary. I'm just, letting whatever boundaries or whatever are around me affect me and control what I've got going on.
Right. So
Yeah.
my thing with the law of activity, because again, I picked that one as well. One thing that stood out to me
Really.
about the law of activity, they gave an example in the book of, a bird hatching from an egg and
Mm-hmm.
how the hatching process strengthens them and gives them, it strengthens their wings and gives them
Yeah.
what they need to be able to operate in the world. Like you just said, we can't be passive. You were talking about your gift for cooking. We can't be passive with what God has given us. We have
Mm-hmm.
to be active. We have to be aggressive. That's what grows us. And if we sit around waiting on God to do things for us, we become weak. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like God gives us the opportunity to work in union with him, right? He extends the invitation. Hey, I have something for you to do. I don't think he condemns us, but it leaves us weak. It leaves us feeble. It leaves us unsatisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're wanting God to do it for us. We're wanting that miracle, that turning around quick, and we're not willing to do what He's given us the ability to do. And so that's the reason I chose the law of activity as one of my things, because quite often I do encounter situations where I want to instantly just get there. Like even when we talked about the law of exposure for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult for me to speak my mind at times, especially with other people and in different relationships. But the way to get better at speaking my mind with other people is to actively do it. And the more I do it, the less scary it gets. And I'll give another example with the law of activity for me. In my current job, and I've said this before and people don't believe it, but it is true. I I am shy. I'm an introvert by nature. Let me sit up in this corner and be in this corner. So in my current job, I have to make phone calls to people, and sometimes those people are not very happy with me, right? It's the thing I do not, I despise this part of my job.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started working, I first started having to do these calls, they would say, we need a volunteer, we have a call for this time. Can somebody do it? I would volunteer to do it. And so somebody messaged me on the side and was like, wow, you really love these calls, don't you? And I was like, no, I don't like the calls. But the only way for me to get to a point where I'm better and I'm able to do it is for me to put myself out there and do it. I have to be active. That's how you get stronger. And so I'm off of my
Yeah.
soapbox for the law of
No, but this
activity.
also convicted me in terms of like some things, whether it's with the channel, whether it's with my channel, whether it's with editing, all of these different things, and it's just like you gotta do them. Like you just, no matter what it is, you just gotta get out here and do it. You gotta, you'll never build the foundation and reap the benefits of the things that God is trying to place for you if you don't. So
And here's the thing too. This law is all about boundaries. You can allow other people to set those boundaries in your life for you, or you can set them yourself. And that's
exactly.
that part of the activity. You have to set the boundaries in your life, or other people will do it for you, and you end up frustrated and mad and upset and angry. And so that's why it's important to be willing to be active and set the boundaries, even if it might be difficult for you. And
Mm-hmm.
boundaries are not a bad thing, they keep us safe. I love the analogy of the fact that you are responsible for your home. Everything that's in your
Wait, what
yard.
was your first one?
My first one was the
Exposure.
law of
Exposure.
exposure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool.
You are responsible for everything that's in your yard. Yes, you are part of a neighborhood and there are people beside you with houses, but they also have responsibility to their own personal property. So that example for me always stands out. And that's always the example I use here lately when I'm trying to filter things and filter my emotions and reactions and all that jazz. I've been a chatty Cathy today, brother. So you can go ahead
What's
and
your okay? Because I guess that was your second one, but technically at this point, since
I mean, I didn't write them in order. I just picked the three that were most.
well, what's your third? Because then I'll just go through my last two.
I mean, mean, I'm just saying we've gone through two of mine, so whichever
Oh.
one.
So for me, I'm gonna go through the law of evaluation,
That's my
and
last one. Go ahead.
because changing my mind based on a feeling as though I've hurt someone, and not standing on the fact that I'm not doing this to hurt you. You're not going to be harmed. Like ultimately, this is a good boundary to set. This is something that we need to follow. And it's harder as a husband and future father, and even like as a brother, and so on and so forth. Like those things that I had to set, like we talked about how afraid I was of your cutoff spirit. When it's like, no, sometimes I needed to set that boundary. It's better to do this than to allow you to be actually harmed by me not doing it.
Right. But it's like you said, it is very hard to set a boundary. So, did you have a personal example of a time when you had to use the law of evaluation, evaluating whether or not you're really going to harm that person?
Um, our last conversation about the fight,
Okay.
because I was like, I cannot continue to let it seem like this dismantling of like something I know I needed to do, and what I'm feeling is like getting spoken to from another place of hurt that doesn't have anything to do with what I did, but has more to do with other things. I can't continue to let that be like the narrative for why I did what I did.
Right.
And so like when we got through that last conversation of kind of like working through those things, that to me is an example, because I'm not like, I know that this part hurt, but I'm not like my ultimate goal was not harm in terms of everything that we got going on.
Right.
So that would be my biggest example of that one, because the other one, my last one, I got examples.
Okay. So, I told you I love practical examples. That's why I asked you this question. I love
Mm-hmm.
practical examples. And I recently had a situation where, so for me, the law of evaluation is all about evaluating the effects of setting boundaries, evaluating how that's going to affect other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can be responsible to somebody and how you tell them you're going to set the boundary, but you're not. It doesn't mean you don't set the boundary because you're going to hurt their feelings, but you do need to evaluate. You need to think about it. So, one thing I have been harping on for the longest time on this podcast and in my personal life with people around me that are around me often is the fact that I need to get my finances in order, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a big 40th extravaganza blowout trip like I wanted to because sis, you need to get your financial house in order. There are things you need to do. You need to be a responsible adult. Like you are responsible for your household and you're not
Mm-hmm.
managing this money correctly. So you need to sit down. Was that easy for me to come to? No. And
I,
it wasn't easy for me.
I got
I
other
look,
perfect examples for you as well when you finish this of stuff that
okay.
you have done.
You know me. I love to spend money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I love to
Mm-hmm.
spend and not just money on myself. I love to buy for other people. I just like to shop. Like I love it when my family members call me and say, "Hey, I want you to help me decorate my living room." And they're wanting me to just, tell them what to buy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just love purchasing, even if it ain't my money.
Yeah.
Jam. So,
Girl.
when it's true though. But
I know, but that is so funny. It's just funny, bro. Like that is so unequivocally you that
it
it is
is like,
hilarious.
let's shop, man. What's your budget? Okay,
Dog,
you can buy this, and then this will be cute here. And so, anyway,
dog, off the bat. But like another example is,
I'm not finished with my example.
are
I
you
ain't gave.
not,
No,
girl?
I'm
Oh
not. So
Lord,
what I'm saying, because we're talking about evaluating people's feelings, right? And I'm talking
yeah.
about the boundary I had to set. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I got lost in
Okay.
your other one, so I thought that
Because
was the
I'd be going on
you
a tangent,
do.
but I'm trying to set the scene. So for me,
Yeah.
spoke in an earlier podcast about the fact that I do because I am single. Nobody over here telling me, girl, don't buy that or girl, don't do that. So I had to rope in a friend to be like, hey, I'm going to be open, vulnerable. I'm going to share my finances with you. And I need for you to walk me through financial decisions. What's going to be sound? What's going to, and when I'm tempted to make a purchase and I reach out to you, you know, that person has no problem being like, girl, we can't afford that. You know, even though it's not their money and not putting a dime in, like, girl, we not doing that with our money. You right, girl, we not doing that with our money. You know, and so I'm saying that because everybody that's close to me knows, and they have been given the speech for months and months and months. I can't spend money like that. I'm making better decisions. No, no means no. So an incident happened not too long ago, where I was invited to attend a celebration, and I said, oh, I can't afford to go. And I said it in the group. I'm not ashamed of it. I can't afford it. Like, I have goals. I can't afford it. And it became, and the thing is, because it was,
Okay, hold on.
what I'm gonna say is, in me setting that boundary, it had a potential to hurt that person's feelings, right? Because I'm not doing what you want me to do, and it doesn't make sense to you, right? But that was still my boundary, whether it hurt their feelings or not. I had to evaluate that before I made the statement. And you know, I'm a giver. I love to spend. I love to do, but there's a goal.
Yeah.
And if I continue to cross this boundary to make other people feel good, who's harmed by that? Eventually, in the long run, it's going to be me. Could this potentially hurt this person's feelings? Absolutely. But what's the best option?
Yeah.
Staying true to what you got going on or appeasing other people's feelings. So that is a very personal example for me for how the law of evaluation came.
You did an amazing job. You did an amazing job.
But the thing is, those are all and I will say this, because I am a giver and because I was raised in the church and because I do come from a family of givers, and you just sacrifice and you sacrifice until you die, when you didn't have to die, because God promised me life and life more abundantly. It is hard to set that boundary and stay in that boundary. And so that's why the law of evaluation speaks out vividly to me. Do I always make the best financial decisions? No, not at all. And that's the reason I had to expose people to my new boundaries.
Yeah.
There's that law again, expose people to my new boundaries, because I need help. I need accountability. And I think an important thing about boundaries, when you're around healthy people, they want to see you win. They want to see you prosper. If you're doing something that's going to help you, then they have the mindset, whatever it's going to take for you to win. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's something important too. But I think it is difficult. It's difficult when you've been living your life a certain way and you are ready to change, for people to accept this is where I am now.
Yeah.
And it makes it more difficult for you if you don't have people that are helping you stay the course. But you can do it, y'all. If y'all out there, you can do it, because I am.
A quick example, because I'm not going to take up too much time, because I do got to get to my last law of the last law I had. So one, you have gotten better at that, especially like with us and our relationship, in terms of giving me advice that, it hurts, but it be so right. And I'm better not harmed after, as opposed to like how you said on that Gray Matter album that you're on. If you listen to her interlude, she talks about this. Like, you're not trying to control me or create a version of me. You are earnestly looking out like, dog, this gonna hurt. Like, we both the same in terms of this mental capacity for whatever it is you're annoyed about, which is how I know that ain't how you need to respond. That ain't how you need to act. Like, because it's ultimately going to end up this way. And I'll be like, oh, man, I was just expecting you to be on my side. But
and I have grown in my ability to like let's weigh this out. Like, we do need to think about it, but ultimately at the end of the day, what's the best what's going to be the best move for everybody. So, yeah, I'm going to let you tell me your last
My
law.
last one is the law of sowing and reaping, and
Okay.
often stepping in the path of consequences where I shouldn't have done so. And I think about this a lot of the time. It's whether like lending money to family as a whole is one of those things where you will often just step in places you should not have stepped in. And
So
if
let's
you,
talk about I'm going to let you talk, but I'm
yeah,
going to make it plain to the people that didn't read. So we
oh, let
all,
me, oh, I can do it. So basically, the law of sowing and reaping is basically what you
we
sow.
all know this law.
Yeah,
We
what
know
you
it.
sow is what you reap. And therefore, in that, a lot of times the boundary that has to be set, sometimes people sow stuff and you step in and catch the reap. And
Right.
therefore, they never understand what they're reaping. They
Well,
just
they don't
think
reap
they,
it
well, they don't
because
reap
you
it, but
caught it.
yeah,
You
yeah,
caught the hit for them.
yeah.
And we
And
thank
yeah,
God that Jesus stepped in, right? So we didn't
man,
have to
listen,
take the hit
yeah,
because that's what a lot of us use
yeah,
to
man,
excuse our, oh, I'm gonna take the hit for them every time.
every time.
The reason I'm gonna let you, I said I was gonna be quiet, but the reason for me that was a powerful one for me too. Now, this book my jam. Can you tell?
Girl, I can.
That's a
I'm
powerful
surprised
one.
this one wasn't on your list, bruh.
Well, that's a powerful one for me too because like I said, I'm a giver, I'm a helper. I want to save everybody.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
let's
why I was like,
save
this
the
is your
world. Let's save the world. But when you take on the responsibility for somebody else's bad decisions, they don't learn. You know, what's the saying? I can't think of it. Like,
which one?
you gonna bust your head. You ain't gonna learn until you like.
You ain't gonna learn until you fall and bust your head.
Right, that's it. And we always want to stop it. And sometimes it needs to be no, go on bust it. Cause then you'll learn because it hurt you. But
Yeah,
go
and I
ahead.
can be there with grace to give you a band-aid or whatever, but
I can help you, but you need to
you
learn this
need to
because I
get
keep
hit.
cushioning.
So, often in regards to like lending money or doing all these things, so often we will chastise ourselves for not doing something because we're like, oh my God, well, what are they going to do without me? What are they going to do? Well, they're going to trust the provision of God, is what hopefully they do, because God is going to open a door for them. And like, what is for them is for them. If they're out there working, and I don't say that to like, do not start to be like stringent in a certain way with your giving, but be discerned. Like, are you actually helping? Like,
Correct.
I have that feeling a lot of times when you encounter the homeless community up here is like intense. And so often, coming out from working in the pawn shop and everything else, I'm always hesitant to just give because I'm like, I know what you finna do with this. And it's like, but what am I holding? You know what I'm saying? What am I keeping from the reaping, or what testimony? What am I doing? I just need to be smart with like whether or not I actually can do this. And then, like if God moves on my heart, I do it. Like if he moves and it's just like,
Right.
do this, that's when I do it. Cause outside of that, it's like, there's nothing else that will like help. Because in certain situations, like say you had $1 million, like on a Cash App card or something, and you give it to that person, give it to whoever, like somebody you see, and they haven't reaped whatever it is they need to reap in that situation, that testimony, like, bro, that might be $1 million spent on just nothing, not a home, not safety, nothing, because they're not at that place, because you've now taken, like, and it's such a hard scale to even balance those things. But I use money because I think it's like the easiest example, especially with what you were talking about earlier. If we don't know how to spend or how we should be spending our money, we're just going to end up using it wrong because we never had to reap reap
The
the
consequences.
consequences of, well, this is what happens when you haven't paid your card note in 5 months.
Right. And
or
I will
whatever.
say this. I think the reason I allowed my finances to get in the state they're in is because for me, the consequence, okay, so I own my home.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to buy another one. I pay my bills every month. And so there wasn't a lot of quote unquote consequence, right? I have a lot of debt, but it's not really hurting me until pandemic happened.
Hmm.
And all this debt you have, you can't pay. And then it creates a snowball effect. And so I felt the consequences of the lifestyle I was living. And it prompted, I had no choice but to change. And
And the only thing that even kept you was the fact that the pandemic and God holding back the floodgates of like just how the government moved and decided to move.
I won't even say that, brother, because the thing that really prompted me into action, like, so I was without work for 3 months in the
Hmm.
pandemic. That's no income. People helped me and were very gracious, loving, caring, kind to me,
Mm.
although they didn't have to be, like, not at
Mm-mm.
all. But I probably made, let's say, $30,000 less that year,
Yeah,
which is a
that's a
big
lot.
deal.
That's a huge deal.
That is a huge deal when you are able to pay your bills every month, but you don't have money saved up. That's a big deal
Yeah.
because how do you catch back up, right? And so it forced me to be in a loop and a cycle that was not healthy and made me really realize I
No.
had to eat that.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like in that,
Yeah,
like a lot of us, it was like you could see the levee about to break, to use like the example of like flooding and all this other stuff. And like water's getting through, but it's not
right,
all of that water. And it made you realize, like, oh no, I need stronger levees.
right.
I have to, because this could have been different. Like the government could have been like, deal. And like,
No, but what
just
I'm saying to you is how I was self-employed. So how everybody else got money hand over. I didn't have the people that helped me
that's not
was,
what I. That's not.
yeah.
That's not the only. And I'm talking because I get what you're saying. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the aspect of a lot of those companies like had to actually understand what was going on with people, and it might not
Right.
have been. That's more so what I mean. Like the levees
Oh
could have
yeah,
just
God was
broke.
gracious to me. God was
That's what I'm saying. Like the levees could have just broke, and all them people been
I
like, I don't care what you got,
lost my house,
all
all
of it,
of
give
that.
it to me now. Like,
Right. All
and
of those things.
that wasn't the case. That's what I meant, because I get you think I'm just talking
Yeah.
about the no, I'm talking about like,
Mm-mm.
because it could have been catastrophic for everybody.
It could have been catastrophic for everybody everywhere, but that experience definitely showed
Yeah.
me, girl,
Yes, that's what I'm
you
saying.
don't, yeah, like,
Yes,
girl, reaping, sowing, it's here, it's real.
girl.
You
Whew.
need to live your life right. So
Yeah,
yes, that was a good one for me, brother. But I think because I feel like I understand that one, that's why I didn't, because he been gracious
okay.
to me. But these three were the ones that were like,
Well, that one's
okay.
kind of hard, but you know where I am with that
Right, I do.
situations and everything else to be going on, and it's like trying to work through that one when like, especially, and that's why like I'm sharing this book with as many people as I possibly can, because I don't want you to, like, you still might think I'm coming from a bad place, but scripturally I know I'm working to not.
And
So
the thing too, one thing I have learned so much, and I know you want everybody to read the book, but and I've said this to you before, and I used to say it to Tamika all the time. The only person you have the power to change is you,
yeah, and they
right?
say that in the book.
Right. And we can offer the help to people, we can offer the book, but they have to be willing to read the book and really apply it to their lives. And then not only read it, comprehend it, understand it, but actually live it out.
Yeah.
Those are all different components and different segments. Because when was we supposed to read this book together? Years ago. Our therapist told us,
Oh yeah,
hey,
we
this is
ducked.
the
Like,
book.
bro, we are literally almost like, no, probably at, what am I? No, we're over 10 years, almost at 10 from when it would have been first introduced. Because I was 24.
Okay. So,
when the incident happened to even
right.
prompt
So,
that. So
and that's the thing. Like, I'm not pumping this book up because I feel like you need to go tell everybody in your life what they need to do. It really is about you and what you have the power to control. And I think therapy is one thing that really gave me that insight and really
yeah,
help me realize, girl, you walking around here frustrated, but it's because you're trying to mow everybody else's yard and your yard raggedy. Like, take care of your house, mow your
yeah,
yard, go on in your house and sweep the floor. And, take care of the property that God gave you, and He'll take care of the rest.
because the
You do your
resentment get
part.
real deep when you see this well manicured lawn that you just took care of, and then you look back and see yours in shambles, and it's like, but you don't take the initial accountability of, well, that's because I'm not cutting it. I can't cut your grass for you, and then be
Right.
mad at the state of my grass.
Of my life, my grass, everything that's going on with me is because I'm out of bounds.
Yeah,
I was supposed to be over here taking care of this and I wasn't. So, yeah. Thanks for reading the book with me. It's been a challenging reread for me, but it's also been very helpful for me because I need to continuously be reminded about it. I really hope you guys crack open the book and start to read it for yourself and figure out things that you can do to help live the most purposeful and peaceful life that you possibly can. I'm stepping into 40. I am 40. I busted the door wide open. I'm sitting
girl,
up here.
listen.
I ain't walked far down the hall yet. I'm still right
Oh
here
my
at the.
gosh. Look, y'all, if y'all want to hit us up, everything is down in the description. But we really are pushing y'all to come subscribe to the Bible Study Girl YouTube page, which is down in the description because currently we don't have the slug of the channel. So go and subscribe. Hit up our Facebook so that way, if you want us to have a prayer request or anything like that for you, you can send us messages on that page or on our Instagram or on the Bible Study Girl 2019 at gmail.com email, however you want to go about doing it. Those are the ways that you can. And remember, it is not we, it is not, wait, it's not I, it's not you, but we preach.
And until we meet again, guys, keep preaching.